in the next panel, we're going to be discussing how the brands can stay relevant to an industry which changes overnight at times, and how can they win the hearts of the gamers. Please join me in now welcoming our next up, the panelists. First up, we've got Tejas Apte, the Global Media Director, Unilever. We've got Anushree Ghosh, Head of Digital Marketing, ITC. We've got Ashwin Suresh, Founder, Loco. We've got Abhinandan Balasubramanian, Founder and CEO, GoodGameNation. And we've got Sonali Malaviya, who's the Managing Director of Essence India, who's going to be the session chair. Well, Sonali, a great panel right there on the screen with us. And I'm really excited to know the perspective, because winning the heart of the gamers is what, an exciting topic, I'm sure, for everyone who's viewing. And we're really eagerly awaiting for a discussion, Sonali, which you will moderate with your key guests. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Bhavna.
Pleasure.
Great to be here today. So welcome to the session on winning the hearts of gamers. While you've probably heard it all by now, here are some nuggets for you to chew on and contextualize as we go through the discussion. Did you know there are 500 million plus gamers in India right now? Not too far behind OTTs, which are already a buzzword in the marketing world, especially given the popularity of cricket. India will add another 160 million plus users in the next 3 years. By 2027, nearly 95% of all mobile subscriptions will be 4G plus. Think about gaming bandwidth here. Think of latency as a thing of the past, and cloud gaming will be 5G's biggest use case. Smartphones will be nearly 94% of all mobile subs. I don't know how many of you know, but I'll bring that context back right now. Airtel tied up with Nodwin, Jio with MediaTek and Sega. And from about 50 companies in the gaming universe, we have, this was about 3 years ago, we today have 500 plus. And with growth for everything digital coming from tier 1 and tier 2, gaming too will be propelled exactly there, especially given the vernacular and India themed content. So in a nutshell, gaming is here to stay and only grow. Given that context, how do we bridge the world of brands and gamers? That's the topic in discussion for today. With that, I invite my esteemed panelists, Abhinandan, Anushree, Ashwin, and Tejas, for a quick round of introductions. So over to you, Anushree. Let's start with you and we'll go around the room.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anushree. I take care of digital marketing, content, and growth in e-commerce at ITC FMCG.
Over to you, Abhinandan.
Hey guys, Abhinandan here. I am the founder of GoodGameNation. We are a high school and collegiate esports provider.
Ashwin.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashwin Suresh. I'm the founder of Loco. We are a game streaming and esports platform, which means that you can get on the platform to watch popular streamers stream themselves playing games or watch popular esports tournaments. Or if you're a content creator, you can get on the platform and create streaming content for audiences and build a community.
Thank you. Tejas.
Hi everyone. So I'm currently the Global Media Director for Unilever based in Singapore. I will be relocating soon to India as head of media and digital for HUL.
Thank you. This is a very esteemed panel here. I'm actually getting really stressed out with the combined volume of knowledge that exists in the room today. But we'll start quickly with, we do know that we have 30 minutes, so let's try and make the most of it. Ashwin and Abhinandan, I'll address the first question to you, and I want to understand a little bit more. I gave a very good quick starting point on the evolution of the digital landscape and a little bit of texture on gaming. So over to you about talk to us a little bit about evolution, segments within gaming, what gamers care about, and how gamers are becoming celebs in their own right. Ashwin, do you want to go for it first?
Sure, happy to. Look, I think today we're at a point where, due to a couple of key macro factors, gaming is moving from a niche hobby to a mainstream activity. And the macro factors I talked about, of course, there is, as you mentioned earlier, Sonali, there is low latency and high bandwidth available now to many users. Several people are connected to the internet with very cheap internet plans. Mobile hardware has become incredibly powerful and also less expensive over time. And then the pandemic really just kind of, in some sense, was the final habit changer, right? Where the entire circle of life happens on live streams now. Births are happening there, birthdays are being celebrated there. My own brother got married, and my parents had to watch it through a live stream during the lockdown, and all the way to deaths as well, right? And so I think that we are, as a community, as a population, now much more comfortable with the idea of streaming ourselves live, of streaming various activities, and I think the single biggest use case for that before the pandemic was anyway gaming, right? And then couple that with a bunch of very, very big launches from these MMO, RPG, FPS games that have shown up, right? Whether it's PUBG or BGMI or Free Fire, just taken the market by storm. You really have, all the ingredients for just an explosion in this sector. And I just want to take a minute to also point out that when I say gaming, when I talk about gaming, I'm referring to kind of, the focus being on what used to be called traditionally video games, right? I'm not referring to, real money gaming, fantasy gaming, and those sorts of categories that, in fact, have existed and grown since maybe a year or two before the pandemic. I think we saw a big growth in the real money gaming sector from 2018 onwards. But I'm focused here on, gaming and esports as it traditionally relates to kind of video games, consoles, PCs, and now mobile gaming. So that's kind of my overview of that. Happy to answer any specific questions, or maybe Abhinandan, you can share your thoughts.
Sure. Abhinandan, do you want to give some more texture, and do touch upon the whole tier 1, tier 2, context as well? Really important. Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonali. And, I think Ashwin's segue on sort of defining what we mean when we say gaming was important, because it gets sort of muddled up with a bunch of other activities which in their own right are gaming, but video gaming is obviously what we are sort of talking about. Within this sort of segment, there's obviously hyper casual, and competitive gaming. So right from Fruit Slasher to Angry Birds to Call of Duty, everything is a game, right? And you have, and it requires its own level of skills and abilities to sort of participate and compete and actually sort of become a good player in each of these in each of these games. What we're doing at GoodGameNation is quite simply sort of trying to expand the pie in terms of the number of people who have access to gaming and have the access of opportunities and wealth creation from gaming. We broadly classify gamers into 4 sections. So there's the casual gamer, there's the amateur, competitive, and the pros. I think the pro segment is a very well catered to segment. There are many activities there. There are big prize pools that are sort of invested into the pro segment. Globally, many of the pro tournaments, like let's say the League of Legends Cup or the International, which is in Dota, they pay more than your traditional sports. Whilst that is growing, we also have to sort of make this opportunity and democratize that opportunity to a lot bigger segment, because you're talking about a majority of 14 to 24-year-olds actually growing up, calling themselves gamers today. For them is important, and that is where we are playing a small role in trying to change the industry and bring about a very positive change in that, which includes sort of educating the gamer in the do's and don'ts, kind of bringing some structure and organization to the chaos, and also very importantly educating the parent and other stakeholders, which is a very important aspect of it. I hope that gives further clarity from what Ashwin spoke about under the video game category.
Thank you, Abhinandan. Yes, indeed it does. Ashwin, I also, when we were talking, I think one of the subjects that you touched upon, and it was really interesting, and I do want to bring it to, for everybody to hear the example that you gave of gamers becoming celebs in their own right, because I mean, we know that influencer marketing is coming of age, and here is one massive cohort that actually is becoming huge when it comes to, just drawing and connecting with that audience. You want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as gaming has grown over the last 2 or 3 years, there have obviously been several breakout game streamers and professional esports athletes that have, kind of gathered a community around them, right? If you look at from the early, I think one of the earliest superstars of gaming was Naman Mathur, who goes by the name Mortal in the gaming universe, and Animesh Agarwal, who goes by the name Thug. These guys built communities and audiences for themselves at a very, very early nascent stage of the ecosystem. And today, they're able to then get those communities to participate in, in watching esports tournaments, in watching, just casual streams, in engaging with them on social media. They've built very large followings on game streaming platforms like Loco, but also on social media platforms like Instagram, right? And so I think that they are very much becoming key opinion leaders in their own right, much like digital video creators or the more traditional content creators we've seen over the last several years. And I think that if you look at kind of even how celebrities work out on a large scale, and you've got kind of in India specifically Bollywood and cricket, or when I say Bollywood, I should say maybe films and cricket really are two big pillars, right? And I've always felt, and maybe this is a personal point of view, but I've always felt that cricketers command that little extra edge because the perception of the skill required to play professional sports at that level is slightly higher than the perception of skills required to be an actor or to be a movie star, right? So I think that gamers benefit from that same shine, which is that it's a skill-based following. They're being admired for their abilities and not maybe necessarily their looks or their personalities or whatever, but just about how much practice and how much effort they put into their craft. So I think that as you see this ecosystem expand, you're going to find the most popular, celebrities and key opinion leaders are going to start being gamers very soon. It's not, it's only a matter of time before you have hoardings and sponsorships and brand endorsements. They're already happening at a smaller scale, and it's only a matter of time before some big brand comes in and says, my brand ambassador for for my product is going to be someone who's from the gaming community. I think we're less than 3 years away from that moment.
Yeah, probably even earlier, but thanks. That was a very important and interesting perspective. I think that one thing that you said that's going to stay with me for long after this conversation is over is the circle of life on live stream. It is pretty profound. I mean, given that how life has changed on its head in the last 2 years, I think that is a very important thing to keep in perspective as we go. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk to Anushree and Tejas a little about, considering that the mass media ecosystem has largely been the go-to for FMCG advertisers, what will it take? And I know that there has been, in bits and pieces, there has been gaming and there have been many other, a lot deeper engagement kind of activities that have been done by FMCG advertisers, but it hasn't yet become second nature. So what will it take for you to consider the gaming ecosystem as a viable advertising platform and for your deeper marketing needs? So Anushree, let's start with you.
Sure. So I think, Sonali, I think the question is pertinent, important, and as you rightly said, gaming is still today a little bit of an afterthought. We know that there is this cohort of highly engaged audiences, and I know for a fact that this is not one monolith, right? There are different kinds of gamers available, different kind of interest areas that one can really reach out and hence really make it relevant to the brands and the objectives that we really work with. We know that it will cater to our reach and frequency needs, but there are many unknowns here, and this always reminds me of the fact that how digital used to be a few years ago, not really a few years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when the house was still a little bit unknown, which means that reach is not a problem anymore. Do we know the right context, or do we know the right content, or do we know what would really not cause an interruption to an otherwise engaged gamer, which will really create a little bit of a blind spot, and then the gamer is really waiting to skip that ad and just move on, which essentially draws the question on effectiveness. So I think, and then of course, as CPG brands, you really want your mind measures to move, your business to move, and so on and so forth. So I think the unknowns and the hows of it, and I think a lot of points that Ashwin really touched upon do really present a very, very compelling opportunity. We, as CPG brands, a lot of them are actually looking at gaming as a genre, as a very, very potent area to kind of grow or build brands with. But the unknowns are a few more than what would really build confidence. And then, it then becomes a part of one of those line items that we use in our media plans, and it will become second nature, like you said, to any of our media thinking. So I think, yes, so the moot point being the unknowns are a few more. It needs marketers or media folks need a little more education in terms of what works, what doesn't, the playbook, how do we measure? Is it really, really adding back to what we advertise for, right? Ultimately, you advertise for reaching out to new consumers, or you have brands have certain objectives that they really want to fulfill. So I think that's pretty much the point that we would want to deep dive on.
Thank you. Tejas, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the party on gaming is already here. We referred to the number of 500 million. I'm just going to briefly talk of two cases that I've seen within the Unilever world globally, not India-based. I think the topic of today is winning hearts of gamers, right? So first I'm going to talk about how do we activate purpose within gaming. So Hellmann's, which is our famous mayonnaise brand, believes that no food should go to waste and everybody should have tasty food, right? So that's broadly what the brand purpose is. What they did was a very simple activation on Animal Crossing, which is a very popular game. I'm sure most of you played or have played it at a point in time. So we created an island on Animal Crossing called the Hellmann's Island. And what we did was something very simple. So we said for every spoiled turnip that you donate on the island, which is in the virtual world in Animal Crossing, we will make a financial donation to fund equivalent of 2 meals distributed in UK. So this is, I think, a great way of using virtual world to doing actual good and leveraging gaming as a platform. So this is about how we build brand purpose. Now at Unilever, we also believe it's good enough to drive sales, by the way. So I'm going to touch on another example from China, and this is on Clear, which is a shampoo brand. So we tied up with Honor of Kings, which is one of the largest mobile games in the world. And they have a very popular esport version of it called the KPL, which is the Kings Premier League. And this is the opportunity that we thought of leveraging. Now, what we did differently was instead of just doing regular game integration and getting influencers to talk about us, we actually changed our product, or rather our packaging. So we launched a limited edition clear bottle, and we replaced the bottle cap with a replica, a miniature of the actual trophy that someone wins if they win the KPL. So it's called the Dragon Trophy, and we basically launched bottles which featured the metal dragon head. And you know what? In 2 days, the whole stock was sold out. And I'm not talking a few hundred, I'm talking hundreds and thousands of bottles. So I think at Unilever, we definitely believe that one, gaming is big. Two, it can definitely drive both brand love or purpose and definitely drive sale. I think what we need to get towards is having the right campaign ideas and having the right creatives which are fit for the platform. Interestingly, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were just going through the first ever TV ad which was made, and it was for a wristwatch brand, and basically it's the watch on the screen for 10 seconds and the hand just sticking around. Because the creative director had a lot of experience in making print assets, so it was just a static visual, but of course animated because the hand moved. I think we are in a similar place right now where we try and put a TVCs into gaming or other apps. I think we need to move away from that. So if we really understand consumers and if we have great creatives which are fit for platform, I think there's a huge opportunity waiting for us to explore.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Tejas, you also spoke about brand safety when we were talking yesterday. Do you want to touch on that?
Sure. So I think maybe just a quick point on this. I know that gaming is massive. But it's also important that we build a brand safe environment for advertisers to be present, to participate in gaming. internet took a fair amount of time to get into a space where we now think we are confident of advertising on it. I think the sooner we do that on gaming, the better it is for the ecosystem. A simple example, I'm assuming a lot of you have kids, and it's fairly common for your child to pick up your phone and play a game on it. Now, all the cookie data, whatever tracking data is there for that phone, will suggest an adult who's using that phone. So the kind of advertising or the kind of messaging which might come your way will be different. And as advertisers, there are places where we genuinely do not want to reach out to kids because of different issues. So I think brand safety and also some aspect of verifiability of who's genuinely consuming the ad. I think those two, if we can unlock, then the gaming party should really start.
Thank you, Tejas. I think there's so much of this that resonates, and I think there's just multiple conversations around this. I think I do want to get back to Ashwin and Abhinandan here to say that, you both are deeply entrenched in the ecosystem. There are still two burning questions we should try and answer. And that's more in the space of, again, creating bridges between brand and gamers, and actually for gamers to see value and for brands to be able to get meaningful value out of these engagements as well. So my question to you is, how do you think brands can create meaningful value for gamers? And a second tag on to that is, what can brands do to get noticed, and what are some of the use cases that stand out for you that we can learn from? And I think I keep repeating this, which is immersion rather than interruption, because so far the default format is interruptive, and that cannot be very pleasant for gamers. So Abhinandan, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, no, 100%. We, Tejas and you early on, you kept saying this term mainstream. The reality of it, though, is, gaming is mainstream amongst gamers. It's in an echo chamber. There's a classic example, right? The guys who play golf or the guys who watch golf, and gaming is in that echo chamber, right? And that's one of the predominant reasons why there's so much stigma attached to it as well, because others don't get as much access to the sort of education and what it stands for, and just the ethos of traditional sports is pretty much what is there in this as well, right? And yet people don't see that. So I think for brands, the most important thing is to sort of evaluate this as much and as equal to, and this is, I'm saying this with a leap of faith, given that both Tejas and Anushree are here, to, let's say, traditional sports, right? Because these are athletes. They put in the hours, they train, they practice. There's blood, sweat, tears involved in this. And going back to what Ashwin said early on about how these guys have such huge following, it's come out of fandom, right? I mean, just as how, your Rafa Nadal, your Ronaldo, your Virat Kohli's have fans, these guys have fans. They are admired for their ability, for their skill, their craft. And brands need to identify that this is not an experiment or a passing trend or a fad. This is something that's here to stay. Esports and gaming at large are massive industries. Esports is further validated because it's now in the Asian Games. It's a medal sport. It's in the Commonwealth Games. It was sort of piloted in the Olympics as virtual games. So I think it's important for brands to understand the competitiveness and the seriousness of this, and sort of and evaluate it from that lens, as opposed to just sort of digital activation, right? Which is the sort of rabbit hole that most brands go into, and sort of. And because of the unstructured nature of the ecosystem, you have hundreds of organizers and mini tournaments happening. They're finding it hard to target the right way to sort of put their spends and sort of evaluate it. And for that to happen, I think obviously structuring the ecosystem is a big play. And what we strongly believe at GoodGameNation is from the grassroots, when you structure it, you'll be able to sort of get a very focused, targeted demographic that you can sort of activate, market to, and sort of engage with. And streaming players like Loco obviously sort of give you the distribution channel as well for that. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents. Because it's important that brands sort of back the idea of competitive gaming. Without that happening, we won't sort of break through. I mean, classic example is blockchain and Web3. Completely different industries, but why has that become a household? I think NFT was the most Googled word of last year or something like that, right? And the reason why it became household topic is because people could earn money from it, right? And people are earning money from gaming as well. It's a very small section, but people are. And the minute more brands outside of like the few and far and few endemics that keep investing in it come into it and actually invest in the space and empower the community, it will become a household topic. It will become more adopted and accepted in the mainstream, and truly mainstream.
Thank you, Abhinandan. Ashwin, do you want to touch upon, maybe just add a little bit there if you have anything to say, and also about what can brands do to get noticed, and if you can think of any use cases that stand out for you.
Sorry, my dog has a point of view, so he's trying to make his presence felt. So I apologize for that. No, look, I think I agree in principle with almost everything Abhinandan just said. But there was one point that I felt differently about, which is, that the gaming community sits in an echo chamber. While it's true in the case of a lot of communities that kind of the watchers and the participation is heavily overlapped, I think the pattern I observe here is similar to what I saw in 2015 and 2016 when we were trying to work with advertisers and educate them about digital content and digital influencers and stuff like that, right? Before it became mainstream, before web series were considered kind of mainstream. I think the fundamental challenge is that brand managers, who are ultimately the custodians of these spends, are often not part of the community, right? They're not gamers themselves. The gaming community skews a little bit younger in general, and to get to a level where you're a decision maker about brand spends generally requires a little bit of experience and a bit, where you're a bit older. And so often they are not as clued into the ecosystem because they're not participants of that ecosystem. And I think brands will, in order to get smart and make sure they're investing in the right areas, will need to build that muscle, right? Whether that's built, internally through just hiring experts or in partnerships with other platforms or other, gaming community members. I think the need still exists, and I think that, like Abhinandan mentioned, right now endemic brands already realize the value, right? Because they see direct conversions from associating with that community. But I do think that for non-endemic brands as well, they must look at this just like they look at any other attention aggregation business, right? If you look at a Hotstar or a YouTube or any of these platforms where attention is aggregated, where a large number of users are spending, so I think that gaming platforms are much the same. Whether it's Loco or any other platform, we have a large number of people that are sitting here paying attention towards some piece of content. And I think that you said an interesting thing about immersive versus interactive. I think that's almost like level 2. That's almost phase 2. I think phase 1 is just kind of getting in front of these consumers, right? And just getting in front of them, even if it's interruptive. And remember, live sport is an interruptive advertising medium. People are still used to and comfortable with interruptions in live sport. I think that, and this must be looked at with the same lens. So I think, early days, and there's very little wrong that brands can do other than, inaction. The only course of action that they shouldn't have is inaction. I think otherwise everything is good.
That sounds really good to me. So I think if I was to say that, inaction is the only thing that you shouldn't be doing. And like with every other medium, as we've built our muscle, as we've grown and, got to understand another platform, and we've gotten better at it. So I think gaming is no different. The ecosystem's no different. We've recently started to learn how to use OTTs, not that far back, right? We've just started to work with influencers, again, not that far back. I think from everything that I heard all of you say and the numbers, this is going to be a much steeper and faster uptick. So the faster we start to test and learn, the faster we start to run pilots, POCs, I think the only way forward is up. And it doesn't take a lot, right? So that's what I heard Ashwin say and Abhinandan say, that let's get into it. So inaction won't help us learn. So on that note, everybody, you've been great. I think we're almost at time, but we have a quick round of closing comments. And
No, Sonali, I'm so apologetic, but we're really out of time on this. I really would have to intervene because we have our next panel waiting. We're already 15 minutes overdue, but we wanted to respect your knowledge as well, which is why the 30 minutes is up. So I'm apologetic on that.
that's fine. That's fine. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for your time. It was really great chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.